Zimbardo's research. So the spec requires you to know conformity to social roles as investigated by Zimbardo. So the questions can be asked in specifically related to Zimbardo's research or conformity to social roles. So it's important that you know that Zimbardo means conformity to social roles. So we're going to look at Zimbardo's research in a bit more detail. So the aim was to see whether people would conform to a new social role, so prison guard or prisoner. So the procedure. A mock prison was set up in the basement of Stanford University, which is in America. Male student volunteers were psychologically assessed and the 24 most stable were selected, and they were randomly assigned the role as prisoner or prison guard. They responded to a newspaper advert where they would be paid $15 a day for their 2-week study. So it was a volunteer sample. The prisoners were arrested at their home, so it was unexpected. They weren't aware that there would be a fake arrest happening at their home, and they were taken to the university, the mock prison. There they were stripped, deloused, and they were given a prison uniform and a prison number, and they would only be referred to as that prison number, not by their name. They were expected to spend 23 hours a day locked in their cells for 2 weeks. The prison guards were given uniforms, which included truncheons and mirrored glasses, and they worked in shifts, and they went home at the end of their shifts. So the findings. Over the first few days of the study, the guards grew increasingly tyrannical and abusive towards the prisoners. So they'd wake them at night time, they'd force them to clean the toilets with their bare hands, they made them carry out other degrading activities. 5 prisoners had to be released early because of extreme reactions, such as crying, rage, acute anxiety. And those symptoms appeared after just 2 days. 2 prisoners had some form of a nervous breakdown and developed a nervous rash over his body. So one developed a nervous rash and one went on hunger strike. The guards became increasingly sadistic and abusive in their behaviour, whereas the prisoners became increasingly passive and accepted the behaviour of the guards. The study was ended after just 6 days, following an intervention by a postgraduate student who reminded the researchers that this psychological study did not justify the abuse that went on during it. So they concluded that the participants' reactions were so extreme that they had conformed to the social roles. So the guards had conformed to being abusive and sadistic, whereas the prisoners had conformed to being passive and accepting their plight. So we could get a question that's outlined the procedures and findings of Zimbardo's research into conformity of social roles. So 2 marks on procedure, 2 marks on the findings. In terms of evaluation, so the sample was unrepresentative, androcentric, only carried out on males. It was also ethnocentric, only carried out in America. So will it apply to females and will it apply to other cultures? It is guilty of being gender and culturally biased, and it would be beta biased to generalise it to females and to other cultures. So it might help to explain Abu Ghraib. So Zimbardo argues that the same conformity to social roles was evident in the Abu Ghraib military prison in Iraq, so it could help explain that. There is high control over variables. Only the most emotionally stable individuals were selected, and they were randomly allocated their roles. So there was reduces any participant variables and increases internal validity. However, it may lack mundane realism and demand characteristics. So the behaviour of the guards and the prisoners was not due to conforming to the roles, but due to the demand characteristics of the study. In a later interview, the one that was referred to as John Wayne said, "I decided to become the most abusive prison guard that they wanted." So could it be that they were playing up, they knew what the experimenters wanted and they were going along with that role. So that therefore affects the validity of the results. Also, there are ethical issues. So participants were under great distress throughout the experiment, and they were encouraged to stay. So did they have the right to withdraw? Also because there was conflict between Zimbardo's two roles. So he was both the lead researcher but the prison superintendent. So he was more concerned about running the experiment, and he got too involved, than the responsibility of protecting his participants from harm. So you could briefly discuss two criticisms of Zimbardo's research into conformity to social roles. So remember, you can't be specifically asked to a certain number of criticisms. So it's important that you know at least two strengths and two weaknesses of research, and outline and evaluate research into conformity to social roles. So remember, as I said, social roles means Zimbardo. So this question would be asking you to outline and evaluate Zimbardo's research.